We at Time Shifters hope that you enjoyed this rare and infamous moment that combines a first-rate disaster with genuine historical significance. But now it's time to take a deep breath as we prepare to temporarily reset you. Get your cast to Mars.
Everyone, this is Christopher and Tom, and this is the Time Shifters Podcast. In this show, we discuss and review film and television, primarily in the sci-fi, fantasy, and horror genres. We are thrilled when we hear from our listeners, and we have many ways for you to contact us. Send an email to timeshifterspodcast@gmail.com or follow the link in the show notes to find all our social media accounts. You can also visit timeshifterspodcast.com and leave comments or use the Contact Us form found at the top of the page. Now let's get Tom in on the show and get started. Tom, welcome back. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I think I have at least 99% recovered from my cold and congestion that I had from last episode. Have you been up to anything interesting?
We've been consumed by all sorts of crazy weather of late. I am continuing a personal journey while trying to work out by watching bad 80s cartoons.
There are plenty of those.
As we talked about before the show, we discovered that there was a third and fourth season to G.I. Joe, which was absolutely atrocious. It's all the stuff that was supposed to take place after the G.I. Joe the movie, and they quickly... Rewrite's not even correct. They essentially eliminated everything that they did in the movie, and maybe even before the movie, to tell another far more... it was trivial. It was toddlers were more sophisticated than the content that came in the third and fourth seasons.
That's a shame, because it isn't like most of G.I. Joe was exactly, high art.
No, by no stretch of the imagination, but the animation dropped off significantly. The detail all washed out. They started doing lots of pastel colors, and then they kept sticking in, comedy sound effects into things. So it was never high art, like you say. The first two seasons were action-packed. There was fairly decent detail in the animation and the characters, and there was consistency in both developing a character and what they wore. And they threw all of that out the window and redid it all for the third and fourth season. It was terrible. So,
was there a new generation of toys that they were marketing at the time?
G.I. Joe always has a new generation of toys to this day. No shortage there. But yeah, this was just getting ridiculous. And it was even kind of funny. By the time you get into the fourth season, you're right around 1991. There's a little more thought about ecology and stuff, and they literally created some G.I. Joe eco-warriors.
Okay, wow. Yeah. Did it actually run that long? Because I just was looking at something sort of related or whatever. I was just looking for the timeline, and I think the cartoon that we are all used to premiered in 1983.
Thought it was 4, but yeah. But what it was is it had lots of hiatus.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was kind of more like a relaunch kind of thing.
I see.
And it went terribly wrong. One of the characters, as goofy as he was an interesting character to put in the mix, which was the Cobra Emperor Serpentor.
Right, remember him.
Yeah, and he was to usurp Cobra Commander and all that, and then they have a very lengthy explanation in the movie about where all of that comes from, and even where Cobra Commander comes from. And in that movie, they devolve Cobra Commander. He becomes a snake at the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
The first opening section for season 3 is to completely undo that. They take Cobra Commander, turn him back into a person, and in his vengeance, Cobra Commander takes Serpentor and turns him into an iguana. And never hear from him ever again.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, but they eliminate a bunch of actually better characters in favor of these newer ones that are just flat out awful. So, but we suffer through that, and because we were watching these during exercising and we ran that out, we decided to start the GoBots next.
And I know you and I have actually discussed GoBots a little bit privately. You are a big Transformers fan. I won't say that I'm a GoBots fan.
Yeah.
I just sort of appreciate them for... They market themselves and you get what's on the tin. You know, what you see on the cartoon is what you're going to get in the box if you buy the toy.
Oh, well, sure. When you have that little sophistication in your transformation, it's super easy to do.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of dig that. As far as another cartoon that is there strictly to sell toys, I think there's a little bit more connection between the toys you buy and the cartoon you're watching.
No, and that's a fair thing to state. In fact, that's one of the more entertaining things I liked when Transformers got around to Beast Wars, is when they first introduced digital animation for the Transformers. One of the rules between Kenner / Hasbro at the time and this new series was any character that was featured on screen had to transform the same way on screen as it did out of the package.
Yeah. There's none of that magic and, you know, this blurs and, now he's a robot. Oh, now he's a car.
Right. So they got, that was cool, but I appreciate that, especially since the original Transformers, especially the original ones, what you got as a toy and what you saw on screen, not necessarily the same thing.
Exactly. And that's just it. The GoBots were almost identical.
But to that point, the same things that some of the Transformers toys owned as this is what we were able to produce as a toy, GoBots just went ahead and goes, yep, that's what that looks like. So if transforming your truck was literally folded in half and the cab becomes the head with no face, no anything, it's just that's what's on top. That's what the GoBots did. Yeah. Whereas for the Transformers, they put a sticker on a seat and called that Ironhide's face as he looked through his own windshield.
Right, yeah, he always had a little something a head that would pop up, you know, something that would ordinarily be hidden. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I feel you, but yeah, it's kind of, since I don't like the GoBots at all, and my friend that suggested we should watch that now, he wasn't prepared for it to be 65 episodes long.
Right. Well, at least they're short.
Yes, there is that. But it is very, very Hanna-Barbera, and take that as both a plus and a minus.
I started watching a little bit of that, and I was kind of impressed with the first handful of episodes because they were a through storyline, you know, from first episode to fourth, fifth, whatever it was. I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. That's really advanced for a cartoon from this time. I was giving it a little bit too much credit because as soon as you get through that introductory story, it just turns into the problem of the week after that. And then a thing I also got tired of really quick was Scooter.
Yeah.
Its voice is... You can only take so much of that.
Right. Yeah, no, it's miserable to hear. And then I can't help but laugh. I was laughing at this out loud this morning as we watched an episode. I marvel at the concept of a transforming robot that still requires occasionally opening his own access panels and pushing his own buttons in order to do stuff. Like,
right.
Aren't you a life form? That's not a bolt-on. That's your body. So, yeah. Granted, again, 80s cartoons, they are what they are, but it's still kind of funny.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
So what's going on with you, man?
A little bit. I finally got around to watching 2022's Prey.
Oh, okay.
The Predator film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it. Mm-hmm. I feel like it missed a beat maybe by revealing that it's a predator as early as it did in the film.
Yeah.
I almost kind of wish that was something they could have kept quiet through all of the production. And so when you went to see this film, it might have just been marketed as oh yes, Native American woman wants to be a warrior, and it's all about this. And it came up in the right time. It would have fit in really well with the Me Too movement and everything. People would have gone to the theater to see this thing.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, halfway through the film, realize, wait, this is a science fiction film about a monster? I think that would have been awesome. Maybe it only would have worked for the first week.
Yeah.
But I still think that would have been cool. And I think it would have made it a little bit more of a fun film if you were sitting there waiting for it to appear. And in this film, it shows up in the first 5 minutes.
I know. And I appreciate the thought, but they were also trying to pull in the Predator fans right away.
Yeah, I suppose that's what they were looking for. They weren't trying to make new fans. They were trying to bring in all the current fans.
Yeah, they were trying to give some new material to what was becoming a very hack franchise.
Yeah, no, I think for what it was fine. To me, it sort of just quickly became just another kind of sci-fi action film.
Aliens doesn't quite work that way, but Predator is supposed to be about a race of beings that their culture is to go and hunt. And the story they have yet to tell is from a predator's perspective. That, I think, is how you refresh a franchise like this. Mm-hmm. Let's get their perspective. Let's go live the life of a predator. Or live on their world, or see something of that kind. But as long as you're just rinse and repeat in all of these, it's they're human beings or whatever going on, and all of a sudden a predator shows up, and now you have to fight the predator. I get no appreciation for predators that way.
I think it loses a little something when you got the idea that this race of hunters, and the whole point is them, hunting what's supposed to be a dangerous prey that it could potentially kill them, but unless you get them first and everything. But they always show up with much more advanced weaponry than their opponent.
Right.
So I don't think you can start going against people from the 18th century with laser nets and spear guns and stuff and call yourself I'm the superior hunter. No, you got better toys.
Right. Which also is part of my problem with the movie Prey is there isn't a circumstance where he shouldn't have won.
Right.
So it's really just kind of writing and dumb luck that is why the Predator lost in that movie.
Well, especially because he has a weapon that apparently only works if he's wearing his laser-guided helmet tool.
Right.
And for some reason decides to use it even though he no longer has his laser-guiding helmet.
Right. And that's how he's fell.
Right.
Is she caught on to what the lasers were doing. Yeah, then why would he fire the weapon?
It's a little bit like... I no longer have my 6-shooter, but I've got bullets. And you need to start throwing them.
Yeah. Exactly. And yeah, so that's where that falls apart. And then I like to take it a little step further. The other thing that has come up recently is my son really wants to get more into Star Trek, and he really wants to watch the Strange New World stuff, especially ahead of the next season coming out.
Yes.
But Predators and Klingons, and in Strange New World's case, the Gorn, I struggle with the thoughts of a race that is so driven by its level of violence, its notion that it's kill or be killed at all times, would have the time to develop interstellar travel.
Yeah, the Gorn doesn't... They work as a threat on a planet. They don't work as... It doesn't make any sense as a interstellar race.
And when we're literally watching the first real episode where we don't see the Gorn, it's the battle near a planet, and they have to go hide near the black hole and all that. And at one point they learn that essentially the ships literally use like Signifor language to communicate with each other, and she uses some of that language to turn them against each other. And like, okay, if you can do that, why would they have ever made it out this far out into space? They just turn on each other. And their own young eat each other until one is left. So, like, not seeing where you had time to develop warp technology.
Yeah, you feel like you could win a battle just by pulling up next to their spaceship and going, roll down your window, I want to tell you something.
Sucked out into space. Yeah. Yeah, they just don't seem to have the sophistication level that you're hoping for something that would actually wander into space.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the Predator, same problem. That their entire culture is built around hunting. And I can understand developing more and more technology to hunt, but they seem to be a little at odds with each other as well, because there's dominance in this. When would you get around to developing the space travel part?
Well, and I think that goes back to what you were saying, where you want to see life from the perspective of the Predator.
Yes.
Is it, maybe because it's been done now and explained in novels and graphic novels and that sort of, and other media besides film.
Yeah.
I think if that's what they've done and said, that the entire race that's what they do, that was a mistake. That should be just like we here on Earth have hunters, but that's not their entire life.
Right.
You know, they have jobs, they have families, they have to go to the store, that sort of thing. So I think they kind of take something away from the idea of the Predators by saying, no, this is all they do.
Right, yeah, and that's why I think if you wanted to really refresh the franchise, make them the hero temporarily. Give us a reason to be interested in them beyond the monster that you keep showing.
Yeah, well, I think they will. They tried to do that in a way, and that's what I think people would do if they tried to reboot it, is go, because it's the xenomorphs that they're battling. Right. They'd tie those back in, and like,
right.
Can we not?
Yeah, occasionally can we come up with a new...
Yeah, okay, great idea, but let's try this. Maybe not.
Let's go in a different direction. But yeah, no, I think I'm getting to it's weird. I'm going to say this, but then my love of Strange New Worlds is almost the antithetical to this. Is I need some fresh new stuff.
Yeah,
I need you to develop stories. I don't even care if you do it within existing franchises. Just come at it a little different. Don't tell me the same story all over again. Prey is no different than watching Predator.
Right, exactly. Except it's been a while since I've watched Predator, and I was gonna say I feel like this really should have been like a remake of Predator, but now that I think about it, I don't remember how or when the reveal of the Predator in Predator was. So it's been too long since I've seen that film.
Oh no, that one actually carried through your idea. You don't see the predator till like halfway through the film. And even your first glimpses of anything are either seen through his eyes or the cloaked version moving through the trees where you can't make out what you're seeing. Like, that's part of what was fantastic about that film is like you didn't know what you were fighting.
Right, and it worked because that was the first time we've seen that.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Or we've seen that creature, we've seen that character. You couldn't do that so much with this one because almost immediately you would go, oh, it's a predator.
Right.
But if you didn't see it at all, if you just worked with the other people in the film suddenly doing that, did I hear something? Play off the anxiety and the nervousness of these hunters that are suddenly feeling like they're being watched and they don't see anything. Keep playing on that for a little longer. And Prey, it is literally like within 5 minutes of the film, spaceship comes down, predator lands, and walks away. You're like, oh, so that's a predator film.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it could be better, and they're going to make another one.
There is talk of a sequel or prequel. Whether that actually transpires remains to be seen.
Yeah, no, I know. But, yeah. Do something different, please.
Yeah, it would be nice.
It would.
Yeah, but that's pretty much it. That's all I think it's worth bringing up at this junction.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and take a break. We'll listen to a promo for another podcast. And then when we get back, we're going to discuss part 1 of 1980's The Martian Chronicles.
And the worst of the worst, and the one where all the characters curse.
Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic, IMDb, and Letterboxd all want to stick a simple rating on what we watch. But where's the nuance in that?
A popular movie doesn't always age well, and who cares if the critics didn't like it? We here at Good Movie, Bad Movie believe every film has an audience.
So join us for the good, the bad, and the so bad it's good, such as The Godfather,
Back to the Future,
Geely,
Jaws,
Young Frankenstein,
Manos, The Hands of Fate,
Killer Clowns from Outer Space,
and Plan 9 from Outer Space. New episodes every other Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
You can find us on Instagram at Good Movie Bad Movie Pod or write to us at goodmoviebadmoviepod@gmail.com.
Or join us on our Discord server by searching Good Movie, Bad Movie.
The cream of the crop and the box office flops. They will always be there to watch. Good movie, bad movie with Ali and Matt.
This is a big day for Project Mars, General.
All our evidence points to the fact that there is no life on Mars.
This is just the beginning of a major effort on the part of NATO alliance to explore the outer planets.
We have come to a new land. We shall need new eyes, shall hear new sounds, whose needs have new ears.
Range ready? Ready.
And there will be new sins.
Colonizing fleet is off at last.
If we meet any hostile Martians, I'm ready for them.
Don't start any war.
Oh, hell, there ain't gonna be no war. They've been prophesying doom for the past 50 years. Ain't happened yet.
This is Mission Control, Expedition 1. Come in, please. Do you read me? Expedition 1.
Damn them!
Forgive us.
He came down from the sky and spoke to me. He said, we are from the third planet.
The germs which actually started the plague being carried there by our first expedition.
I need those 2 reactors desperately.
A few more troublemakers have slipped through.
The ship comes down from space.
You heard what I said.
The sense of what is right.
I don't follow you.
It has traversed the black velocities, encountering ancient moons.
Stop it! The president's going to close down the colony.
Still a matter of speculation, of course.
What is justified?
Who are you?
Who's there?
Pick up your weapon.
The president has declared all lines of communication mutually severed.
They're not human.
He is here.
Like a pale leviathan slipping through an otherwise empty sea.
Come back!
It has come down from the stars, and the shining movements, and the silent gulfs of space.
This 1980 television 3-episode miniseries is based on Ray Bradbury's 1950 book. The miniseries was directed by Michael Anderson and written by Richard Matheson, and it first aired on NBC in January of 1980. Richard Matheson said in an interview, "As I see it, my job on the adaptation of the Martian Chronicles was to follow the original as closely as possible, which I did with few exceptions. I have seen what some people have done to ruin some otherwise marvelous projects, and I was not going to be guilty of that. The sole major change I made was to give it a sense of continuity by taking one of the characters from the third expedition and making him the main character throughout most of the stories. And the character Matheson refers to is Captain Wilder, played by Rock Hudson, who arrives on Mars with the first successful expedition. And in the novel, he dies in an attempt to further explore the universe. Matheson's version allows him to live and establish his home in a colony on Mars. This first part, The Expeditions, stars Rock Hudson, Nicholas Hammond, Bernie Casey, and Darren McGavin. It begins by depicting the Viking lander of 1976 touching down and scanning the local landscape for any signs of life, of course finding none. But the audience is told that had the lander touched down just a few miles from where it did, it might have spotted a sprawling Martian city. Flash forward to the future year of 1999. The first manned mission to Mars visits the Red Planet, but unfortunately, the dreams of a Martian woman who sees the future visit of the Earthmen causes her husband to act out in jealousy and kills the two astronauts. Less than a year later, a second mission is sent. These three men find themselves in a town identical to the captain's hometown of Green Bluff, Illinois. Populated with loved ones of the three astronauts, including many who have passed away, the crew are each drawn away from the ship. Enjoying a reunion with his late parents and brother, the captain realizes too late that the people are really Martians who have used their telepathy to create these illusions and have poisoned the men. A third mission lands successfully, and the crew discover that the Martian civilization has been wiped out by chickenpox, brought to them by one of the previous expeditions. One of the crew members, Spender, an archaeologist, worries that if man colonizes Mars, he will destroy it just as they are destroying Earth. He hides away in the Martian hills and murders most of the crew, determined to stay and kill any future visitors in an effort to preserve the planet. He is eventually killed by the two remaining astronauts. The leader of the mission, Wilder, realizes in that moment that Spender was right. Now, as I said the last time, I have quite a bit of history with this mini-series.
Yeah.
I don't know if I saw it in 1980, because I would have only been 9.
Right.
I'm guessing it was on. I don't know if I watched it then.
Right.
But I know I saw it in one of the several re-airings that NBC did over the years. This was, in my family, the first must-see TV that NBC ever had.
Nice.
So this was something that we watched every time that it did come around. But it has still been many, many years since I've watched this one. But I have to admit, I remember all of it.
Well, if it was on a if it was on a loop that you guys would persistently watch, I could see why.
And this is the first time watch for you. You said you've actually read the book.
Yes, I've read the book, and it's been a long time, so there's a lot of book lost. But yes, this was my first time watching this one.
Well, as Matheson said, he does do a pretty faithful adaptation.
Yeah.
Because I have also read the book. I believe I have a collection of short stories read by Ray Bradbury, of Ray Bradbury short stories. And I think the first expedition might be one of them.
Nice.
So I've listened to that fairly recently, but it's been a while even for that. But from what I remember from the book and watching this, I do think they are pretty close to each other. So in its own way, I think this is if there's an audio book or a visual book, that's what this miniseries is.
No, and that's fair. I have to ask a question right out of the gate.
Sure.
How old is John Wilder?
It's something I did want to bring up. This almost throws back to the 1950s when just about didn't matter how old you were, you were going to space.
Right, but I distinctly recall him being as part of the project in 1976, and then he's the one going to space in 2000? Did I not catch that right?
Yeah, no, I don't think he was connected to the 1976 Viking mission.
Okay, I could have swore I saw him as part of the mission control stuff.
No. The mission control stuff was only in the 1999 expedition to Mars. That didn't have anything to do with the Viking lander.
Okay.
I think the Viking lander, with the whole thing was just almost womp womp. It lands. I don't see anything because it's on the wrong side of the hill.
I even love the way they had the cutaway is like literally it's around the corner from the thing. Like maybe if the camera on the thing could turn all the way around, it might have seen the city, or at least that's the impression that the image left you.
Yeah, it was looking the wrong direction, right?
Maybe if somebody had screwed that one last screw down enough so that the camera could finish the rotation. Like, oh yeah, there they are.
I think Bradbury himself has said that facts can ruin stories.
Yeah.
So that's where, Mars has a breathable atmosphere. Sure. Mars has, canals filled with water all over the place. Because that's how you tell an interesting story. You can't go there and have everyone run around in suits and helmets and not be able to breathe. You can't tell that story. You can't tell the stories that you want to tell in that situation. So, yeah, screw all that atmosphere thing.
Yeah, well, and to be fair, and since we've been picked on about this once in a while, when the book was written, they wouldn't have known any of that.
That's true. Well, I think they would probably know enough to know that there isn't there aren't clouds, floating around.
Yeah. You're not going to get the scenery quite the way that they did it in the movies, but they wouldn't necessarily know what the composition of what's left of the atmosphere would be. They at least acknowledged it would be thin.
Yes, they did give that.
And that part's fair. There is an atmosphere there. It is thin. You can't breathe in it, but that's a different story.
Yeah, I did kind of note just the age and the obvious not astronaut material of almost anyone that was going to Mars.
No, and like no scientific acumen whatsoever. No, like actually, I found myself I was all in on all of this until we get to the actual third mission. Because all the ones, although the rather casual way they come out for the second mission and Spider-Man's leading the crew, I had a little giggle to myself.
No,
like, oh my God!
Tom, it's Peter Parker.
Sorry, it's right. Sorry, Peter Parker lands on Mars with two buddies. Aside from the casual way that they just stroll out of the ship and then just kind of have at the environment. Granted, they land in something they are not expecting whatsoever. So all bets are off once they left the ship. So I give them that. But the third trip, Rock Hudson's crew, they are the most offensive group of people that you will ever meet.
You could write off the fact that you've got a bunch of middle-aged men, not, perfect physical specimens. No one went through astronaut training or anything. No. You could write that off in a story where, 1,000 years in the future, after space travel has become as common as driving to the store, you might be able to write that off.
Right.
But no, we're trying to land on Mars for the first time. Yeah, the first two missions are younger guys. Mm-hmm. They look like, all right, for the most part, I can kind of give them a pass. I guess you look like you could be astronauts.
Sure.
But yes, you are correct. By the third mission, it's stretching credulity a little bit.
Our friend Spender is the most realistic of the potential astronauts. And he's the one that's actually trying to apply any sort of sense of, do we know what we're doing?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I really liked his character. Even before he actually made it to Mars, he was going to be on one of the earlier missions, and he was booted from the mission for reasons not explained.
Right.
Oh, Colonel. Yeah. May I talk to you about the next expedition?
Sure.
I know there was a reason why I wasn't on the first.
Don't look for a special reason, Jeff. There wasn't any. I'll do everything I can to get you on it, provided there is one.
You think there might not be?
I fear there might not be.
Why fear? Is it so important?
You know it is.
Well, personally, I think we should hold off. However, if the project does go, I want to be a part of it, yes.
You know there's always a risk of losing lives in such an operation.
Sure, I know that. But that's not what bothers me.
What is it then?
John, what if, despite all that we believe, there really is life on Mars? Have we the right to invade their world?
Invade?
Should I say colonize?
What's wrong with colonization? Of course, if there were life on Mars, that would change everything. I doubt very much if there is, though. Not life as we know it. Anyway, let's hope we get a chance to find out.
Maybe we're just better off. Mars might be better off without us poking around.
Well, and that's his stance, and I'm also taking the approach, or we're not ready.
Yes.
We don't know enough. We're not in position to do this properly. If we've already lost people, let's hold off.
And we should mention this character is played by Bernie Casey.
Yes.
And a great actor.
Absolutely.
Well cast for this role. It's unfortunate that it's only for this part.
Right.
For just these 2 hours that he's on the screen.
Right, but you have to give him full marks for the fact that he is the conscience.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And unfortunately, especially with where we are in the world today, having him as the conscious was both good, but it's also depressing that he basically pointed out humans suck.
Yeah, pretty much.
That is basically the entire point of this entire first round of this, is that we don't have any business going anywhere. Nobody needs more of us.
They do a pretty good job of explaining. I think that's kind of Rock Hudson's, Colonel Wilder's role, especially in his conversations with Spender, is there's a sort of sense of desperation. Mm-hmm. Because Earth is apparently in some serious crap. Not only is there likely pollution and, ecological issues, apparently we're really close to pushing the button and going to war with somebody.
Yeah.
The United States, I should say,
yes,
is really close to going to war. And so there is a sense of desperation to we need to get our butts somewhere else or we're not going to be around anymore.
Right.
And so he sort of weighs off Spender's concern. And I think that desperation is what drives that.
Yeah, and that would be about the only thing semi-forgivable about what went down in that whole last mission anyways. I mean, the flip nature of everybody on the crew, beyond Rock Hudson's character Wilder and Spender, because even the other remaining astronaut, Parkhill, played by Darren McGavin, who has no business being an astronaut whatsoever.
No. Kolchak was not meant to go to space.
Oh, and seeing as how his big thing in life is he wants to open a restaurant. They're like, dude, what are you doing getting on a rocket headed for Mars? Oh, and then the fact that that's kind of what's first out of his mouth when he's on Mars is like, the economic potential. Like, oh, God. I'm like, this is a so out of touch crew that it's just... I started celebrating when they started all getting shot. Like, woohoo! You guys aren't going to get away with this stuff, so...
Well, especially the Weasel.
Oh, yeah, the Weasley guy.
The Weasley guy of the mission, who immediately starts polluting the damn canal.
We haven't been outside of the ship but 5 minutes, and you're already destroying the place.
Yeah, exactly. You can definitely understand where someone like Spender is just kind of like, I am not going to put up with this guy anymore.
No. Quite frankly, I thought he was going to off him right then and there before he went and found the Martian stuff. But
yeah.
But honestly, only because this was then and it was made for TV. If that was made now, that guy would have been just pissing into the canal.
Oh, no, absolutely.
So, like, yeah, everything about every one of them was pretty much offensive. And I'm like, but it's hard not feeling that. Like, that's the arrogance. That's the, like, if we see it, it's ours.
This could almost be a retelling of, like, the British Empire. If there's very much a sense of colonialism going on, and the attitudes. Even Wilder, he was like, we're not invading, we're colonizing.
Right, yeah, like there's a difference.
Yes. But I think that's the point they're kind of trying to drive home. There is a message here.
Yes.
That is in fact the message. They're kind of showing the fallacy of the attempt at, oh no. We're the good guys.
Right.
We're going to bring wonderful things to Mars.
And that's the part I found fascinating while watching it. Granted, I mean, it has all the it has the issues one might think you might have watching something late 70s, early 80s. It's rough to watch. It's a little poorly acted. Everything can be a little slower, almost tedious in some cases. But the messaging and the fact that I don't know whether I'm enamored with the fact that it is so relevant right now, or depressed that we haven't learned anything since this even came out. Because I mean, the topics of pollution and our environment and colonialism and all that, and I'm like, wow, we really haven't gotten very far, have we? And that's the part that's hard to swallow after a while. Is sure, we've come very far in our technology year over year, but evolutionarily, not so much.
You mentioned the pace of this, and I think that comes a little bit by adapting and being as faithful of an adaptation of a Ray Bradbury story.
Sure.
Ray Bradbury is one of my favorite authors, especially his short stories. And one of the reasons he is because I think he writes thoughtfully. Mm-hmm. His stories are written in a way that allows you to sort of just sit there and mull it in your head as you're reading it. You know, there's no quick action scenes. There's not, and then the explosions, and then no. If anything, it takes place after the explosions in one story, literally. And I think so when you adapt that to film, you get a lot of what would be thoughtful in a book, but boring sometimes visually.
there's a reason that film and books don't always pair very well together. Is when you're doing visuals, you do need to kind of keep moving along.
Right.
You want it to flow like water, not like sand.
Yeah, that is one of the things I've picked up definitely from this watch is the slow pace, especially like in that first hour, and how cheaply it was done.
Yeah, yes, no, it's a made-for-TV movie from 1980. It's going to be cheap.
But even for made-for-TV standards, I feel like the budget was incredibly low for this thing. It's unfortunate that you can't mask model shots better. I'm pretty sure you can. They just couldn't.
Right. And here's the thing, and as a guy that likes some of his more modern fare, all of that is true. It's cheap, some of it's slow, but that thoughtfulness that you mentioned about his writing actually, I think, comes through rather quite a bit. I think, like into this, I can almost give it every opportunity by thinking of it as watching more of a play than a serious TV series with special effects and all that. They're doing what they have with what they got, but what's important is the root story, the conversations had, the things that are learned. I actually, of all the stuff, like I said, the last part where there actually is quote unquote some action. But everything up to that part, thinking through what they were learning and where we were and who was talking, like our first introduction to Martians, and it's just the one couple. Mm-hmm. That was truly fascinating. I love the way they did that. I actually kind of liked that it was a slower pace because the way that Martians have chosen to live would be at a slower pace. Their environment is barren. Their atmosphere is thin. They think more than they do, and I liked that, and I felt that fit with this, so I could enjoy the story a lot more that way.
No, that's excellent. No, and I agree, but I didn't know how much of it was me giving it a little bit of a pass because it's Ray Bradbury.
Right.
You know, being turned into a movie, or one of his stories being turned into a movie, or if it was something that was, that comes across to anybody else. So right. It's good to hear.
Yeah, no, and honestly, the Martian Chronicles, especially with what I remember of how it was written, the story it tells, it is all anthology. It's just snippets of different phases of story.
Well, it was originally just a collection of short stories that he had written previously that had been in magazines or had published one place or another, and someone suggested, hey Ray, you've got like a novel here of all these stories, and so he collected them and then kind of did a little bit of wrote a through line to connect them, and then wrote some additional stories to pad it out to novel form. But so like the first expedition, the second expedition, those were just individual short stories. Mm-hmm. And he was able to just go, oh no, it's the same universe. They just...
Right, but see, that's where I'm going to give this a little extra credit, and actually kind of what's a little missing these days is this is very cerebral content. It's told the way that it's told, and that makes this, the fact that it's even... They made it a mini-series. They broke it into 3 parts. Each of the 3 parts will have its own mini-stories throughout. This is ambitious. This is incredibly ambitious to do. So the fact that they even got a product out is amazing. And I don't know how you would do this any different. You'd have to completely do a rewrite.
Yeah,
to make a one solid story, you'd have to completely rewrite it, because I don't know that now with audiences today, even in the environment where you could do this as a series, where you might be able to pull some of this off and maybe expand on those shorter stories. a little bit. And unless you're going to do it with that kind of love and care, you couldn't do it now. I don't think you could.
I would love to see this done on, a streaming service where it would be given the time and given the room to breathe in a series form. I would like to see all the stories told just kind of as they are, but do so over the course of several episodes. That would be really interesting. I'd like that. And you could expand a little bit more, show a little bit more of the Martian lifestyle. It doesn't have to be just that 1 or 2 night snippets that we see with the couple. You could have it where you maybe Martians have some of the same issues that Earth couples have or whatever. And you can expand on that a little bit and stretch it out to a few episodes, but
Oh, yeah, no, because I can think of all sorts of things that would be truly fascinating by just that first expedition that had almost nothing to it. Like they landed, they got killed, end of story. All of the story beforehand is just the husband and wife scenario for Martians having conversations about the fact that, and that's where you could do some great development is, you were supposed to be kind of under the impression they were above the concept of like jealousy and all that. And the fact that her dreams have reintroduced a feeling that maybe they haven't felt in a while. You could do entire segments just on her actually dreaming the thing. Go through the dream, see what it does to her. That could be really cool.
And you could explore a little bit more with him kind of doing his own self-justification of this jealousy of his wife effectively having sex dreams of aliens and how he can justify it and twist it to go, well, this is a danger to the planet.
Right. It would have been nice, one, to see some of their lifestyle so you know how jarring that this might have been to them. And then, build to that whole, how can he justify how he feels now, which is completely foreign to him, with what he perceives as saving their world. There's lots of potential there. I could see it being done. But again, and this is where the joys of the 80s, the fact that this got greenlit was one thing, but you only had 2 other choices to really watch anything else, so that you get a captive audience in this time period. So, unless you were interested in whatever other goofiness was happening on the other 2 networks, this was what you were watching.
We've talked a lot about the first expedition. We've talked a lot about the third expedition. We need to talk a little bit about the second expedition.
Absolutely.
Because that is actually one... I think that may actually be my favorite, because I think it is the creepiest and most disturbing.
Oh yeah,
of the stories, and I don't think it's told. I don't think it's perfect, especially the end of that story. I don't think is quite. I don't think that realization should have necessarily come from Nicholas Hammond's character, Black, Captain Black. I think that maybe he could have discovered and realized I don't feel so good, and maybe that's when, his quote-unquote brother finally fesses up about what's going on.
That was the part that did bother me. You're absolutely right that's the creepiest of the stories and the most potential, and it actually makes the third one a little weirder, because I'm like, you put in a lot of effort to just eliminate these while trying to learn a little something about humans while doing it, which then made the third one more abrupt. But I did not, that was the one part I didn't care for, is just how quickly the brother gave up. He just had this thought that, what if all of this is fake and you're fake, and are you fake? And he's like, yeah, I'm fake. I'm like, wait. You had him a little bit more on the ropes. You could have drugged this out a little bit more.
I think it would have been darker. I think it would have been more interesting if Nicholas Hammond, Captain Black there. I just don't like the name Captain Black. I'd rather just call him Peter Parker if I was going to call him anything.
Right.
I think it would have been better if he had just, he's gone through the day, he's danced with his mom, he's had dinner with the family, his brother and his mom and dad have all been dead for years, and it's just this. It would be great if he's kind of settling down for the night, and he's like, I can't believe this is happening, and it's too good to be true. And just that's when the Martian, who's posing as his brother, finally admits to him, well, it's not.
Right.
And then pretty much everything that character says from then going forward can still be there.
What if we actually have landed on Mars, okay? So this small Illinois town is not really an Illinois town.
And?
And these people are not my friends. Not my family. They're Martians. Disguised to look like Earth people. And my mother is not.
Is not our mother? Then what about me?
Then you're not my brother, Edward.
No, Arthur, I'm not. Suppose there were Martians, and they saw a rocket ship landing and had no defense against its weapons. Suppose they used the only real defense they had. Telepathy. Suppose they picked up the childhood memory of a town from the captain of the ship. Suppose the town was deliberately populated with the most loved people from the memories of all the ship's crew. People like Marilyn Becker. All the men seeing mothers, aunts, uncles, fathers, sweethearts, dead 10, 20, 30 years ago. Abandoning their ship? Would there be any other way to divide and overcome invaders?
You couldn't disguise the air.
No, we couldn't disguise the air. The chocolate pudding was drugged. Except, of course, you only thought that it was chocolate pudding. Your death will be painless, Captain. A proper question, Captain. We are not a violent people. The members of your first expedition were destroyed by a husband who convinced himself that jealousy of his wife was actually concern for his planet's welfare. This is different. We are joining forces to destroy 3 lives. Why? Because we fear for our existence. We have seen your weapons. More, we have looked into your minds and seen the violence there. We have witnessed in your minds what your kind have done to Earth. How your society trembles on the verge of self-destruction, seeking to find a solution to its own troubles on other worlds, rather than solve them on its own. We cannot permit that on our world. Forgive us, Captain Black. Once we were an honorable people. Now see the depth to which we have inexorably fallen. To murder out of fear. Forgive us.
And then as it's happening, Captain Black starts feeling the effect of the poison as his life is slipping away. That would have been great. But actually having him be like, wait a minute, this isn't real. You're Martian. Wait, where the hell? That didn't come up like 5 hours ago while you're sitting around the dinner table with your dead mom and dad?
Yeah, and yeah, I would have loved to have seen a little more psychological angst around that whole I am being fed something so warm and loving, but this is not right. It needed more, and he was not the actor to pull it off anyway. But I needed more internal struggle.
Yeah, some doubt.
Yeah.
He definitely needed more doubt, and then have him like start to show some doubt, and then just some music cue or a look or a glint in an eye of one of his relatives or something to maybe suggest that they're doing some mental influence on him to make him ignore the doubt that he has.
And this was an interesting approach to how they were going to handle the second arrival of humans on the planet. So this was a sophisticated thing that they were doing. I'm a little put off that they ended him with poisoned pudding. Like, I'd say if you have the abilities to warp his mind and everything around, like they lived like they were these people. They've absorbed those personalities to portray these and are still pushing a vision into a human brain that this is what they're seeing. That's just what you're seeing. You're not seeing the desolate landscape. You're not seeing the gold-eyed aliens. You perceive all this as real, and you poison him. I'm like, why would you not just explode his brain or something? like give him an embolism or something, or even what could have been more insidious is just let them live out their lives thinking this is real till they die. Because that would have been more exposure to humans and learning and knowing their enemy that they are now perceiving as an enemy. I think there's a lot more fun ways that could have gone. But still,
absolutely.
Either way, that's a great little piece right there in the middle of the whole thing.
My favorite bit on that is the end of the story that the narrator explains that still under the influence, because they've been into the astronauts' minds, that all the Martians are still kind of
carrying out their lives as these people.
Yeah, and so they have a funeral, saying words that none of it means anything to them, but they go through the motions of a funeral for the three astronauts. That's a great little moment. I love that. And there's a moment, I don't know if it's done intentionally, if it's meant to be, mean what it means, but there's three caskets and they all have American flags draped off on them.
Yeah.
And then the funeral attendees, they go to bury him and they just take the flags and they just kind of pull them off and drop them to the ground.
Right.
Which is supposed to be like you're not supposed to do that with the American flag.
But they don't have any concept of that.
Exactly. That's what I'm wondering, if that was done intentionally for that very reason, because that piece of cloth is just a piece of cloth to a Martian.
Right. And the other part I picked up on that, they didn't fill in the holes. They just walk away, because that's as much of the ceremony as they absorbed.
Right.
Yeah, so yes, that's a nice touch too, is just the dropping of the American flag. But the fact that as soon as they were in the ground and they had said the words, they don't know anything more about this ceremony. So that's it. They just walk away.
Yeah, and then they just sort of forget that it ever even happened.
Right. Yeah, once it fades, then from essentially them being dead.
Right. I love that idea of them going through the motions just because they're still tied to these memories until they fade like a dream. I'm like, oh man, that's Bradbury at his best, man.
Yeah, no, that's classic stuff, and that's why that'll probably be the more memorable, actually the more appreciated part of the movie, because the first part happens so quickly.
Yes, yeah.
And the third part is so vile. I'm like, seriously, can I catch another ride out of here? I mean, seriously, I don't want to be associated with the human race at this stage.
I am so glad you enjoyed it.
Yes.
I didn't get any actual social media really on this. I think one person somewhere where I posted it just said it was compulsive viewing.
Kind of like you.
Kind of like I can relate.
Yep.
And I'm not surprised if you weren't able to find any critiques from the time, being that it was a TV movie.
Yeah, no, TV movies always hard to find period critiques, and the only thing I did dig up was on Wiki, where apparently Ray Bradbury himself made a comment that this was just boring. I'm like, okay, sir, but maybe go read your book again. It was slow for a reason.
Yep. No, I got a kick out of that. I had that in my notes, and then you mentioned it before we recorded, so I'm like, I won't steal his thunder.
Yep, nope. Especially since that's all I got. but what more do you need? The author didn't care for it. I mean, are you sure your name's not Stephen King? I don't think he's ever liked anything that ever came from his own work.
Well, we're going to continue with the Martian Chronicles. We're going to watch part 2 of the miniseries. This one's called The Settlers. So we'll see what happens to Mars after the expeditions have finally successfully, more or less completed their mission.
Yeah.
Well, at least for 2 men.
Yeah.
So I am looking forward to that one. Yeah. The second and the third part, I think, run together a little bit in my head. So I'm kind of curious, and I'll be interested to see, which story that I remember where they fit in.
That was what was fascinating about finishing this one is watching it through to credit. You catch the preview of the next one.
Yes. Little spoilers.
Yeah. Okay, this is old school TV. Getting back in the swing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for listening to the Time Shifters podcast. If you have any feedback or thoughts on anything we discussed on this episode, please send us an email or comment in any of the social media posts. Follow the link in the show notes or visit timeshifterspodcast.com.
If you can spare some time, and wherever you are listening to the show allows you to leave a rating or a review, please do so. That does help more people find the show.
If you can spare some change, visit Ko-fi.com/TSPOE podcasts and donate it. This will help with the costs of web hosting and episode production. Our episodes will always be free to you, but any help you can offer is greatly appreciated. I just received notice that the web addresses are going to be up for renewal here in about a month, so timely.
Exactly, and if you like the feel of something in your hand for the money that you spend, then please consider shopping at TeePublic by using our affiliate link. Again, just follow the link in the show notes or on the website. It won't cost you any extra, and anything and everything you purchase will help us as well as support many independent artists.
That's going to do it for this episode of the Expeditions of the Martian Chronicles. We will talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.
See ya.